Imagine a ship so grand, so luxurious, that it was hailed as unsinkable. A marvel of engineering, a floating city on the sea, destined to change the world of travel forever. But on one fateful night, all of that came crashing down. On April 14th, 1912, the RMS Titanic, carrying over 2,000 souls, struck an iceberg in the frigid waters of the North Atlantic. And within hours it was gone, leaving behind a mystery that still haunts us today. The Titanic was a dream of unparalleled luxury and innovation, yet it was also a symbol of hubris, a reminder of how human ambition and nature's power often collide. In this video, we will explore the tragedy of the Titanic, examining the choices, the mistakes, the lives lost, and the theories that have emerged to explain what happened that night. The Titanic was more than just a ship. It was a floating palace, designed to redefine luxury at sea. Built in Belfast, Ireland, the ship was the largest ever constructed at the time, measuring 882 feet long and weighing over 46,000 tons. It was equipped with the finest amenities available in 1912, including lavish first-class cabins, luxurious dining rooms, and even a swimming pool and Turkish bath. The fateful voyage begins. On April 10th, 1912, the Titanic set sail on its maiden voyage from Southampton, England, to New York City. Thousands of passengers, from the wealthiest elite to middle-class travelers, boarded the ship, excited by the promise of a quick, luxurious journey across the Atlantic. The Titanic made stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown before heading into the cold, treacherous waters of the North Atlantic. As the ship moved further into icy waters, numerous ice warnings from other ships were received. Yet despite these warnings, Captain Edward Smith, the ship's experienced captain, chose to maintain the Titanic's speed of 22 knots, perhaps in an effort to set a record for the fastest transatlantic crossing. This decision, driven by pride in the race to claim the title of fastest ocean liner, would have dire consequences. The iceberg collision. At approximately 11:40 p.m. on April 14th, disaster struck. The Titanic, gliding through the dark waters of the Atlantic, collided with a massive iceberg. The iceberg's sharp edge scraped along the Titanic's starboard side, causing a 300-foot gash in the hull below the waterline. The ship's watertight compartments were designed to keep it afloat if one or two of them flooded. But the Titanic's collision breached 5 compartments. Water began flooding the lower decks, and soon it became clear that the ship was sinking. Initially, many believed the ship would survive. The Titanic was supposedly unsinkable after all. But as water poured in, the gravity of the situation became apparent. Crew members rushed to launch the lifeboats. But there was one critical flaw. The Titanic only carried enough lifeboats for about half of the passengers on board. The ship's designers had believed lifeboats were unnecessary for such a large vessel. The chaos and the sinking. As the Titanic began its final descent, chaos erupted. Passengers scrambled for lifeboats, with many unaware of the true severity of the situation. Some were told to remain in their cabins, while others were left to fend for themselves. Many of the lifeboats were launched only partially filled, as women and children were prioritized, but many men were left behind. The freezing cold waters of the Atlantic proved fatal for many. The passengers who found themselves in the lifeboats were not safe either. A total of 1,500 people perished in the disaster, either from the cold, drowning, or the violence of the sinking. One of the most haunting aspects of the Titanic disaster was the lack of sufficient lifeboats. Only 20 lifeboats, enough for about 1,200 people, were available on board. Despite the overwhelming chaos, some passengers and crew exhibited remarkable courage. The ship's musicians, for example, famously continued to play their instruments in an attempt to keep calm amid the panic. Some of the Titanic's crew also worked tirelessly to help women and children into lifeboats. Some passengers who were fortunate enough to be saved described the eerie sight of the Titanic's lights slowly fading. Over the years, countless theories have emerged about the Titanic disaster. One of the most famous suggests that the Titanic's owner, J.P. Morgan, orchestrated a switch between the Titanic and its sister ship, the Olympic, as part of a financial scheme. Proponents of this theory argue that the Titanic's collision with the iceberg was no accident. Another theory posits that a fire, which had started in one of the coal bunkers weeks before the voyage, weakened the ship's structure, making it more vulnerable to the iceberg's impact. This theory suggests that the fire contributed to the ship's ultimate demise, even if the iceberg had not struck. There are also those who believe the Titanic was cursed by a series of misfortunes surrounding its construction and voyage. Some even speculate that the Titanic was doomed from the start. The legacy of the Titanic disaster extends far beyond the tragedy itself. The sinking led to significant changes in maritime law, including the requirement for ships to carry enough lifeboats for all passengers, not just a fraction. The International Ice Patrol was also established to monitor iceberg activity in the North Atlantic, ensuring that such a catastrophe would never happen again. Despite these changes, the Titanic's story continues to captivate the world. The wreckage of the ship was not discovered until 1985, lying 12,000 feet below the ocean's surface. Since then, expeditions have brought back haunting images of the wreck, revealing the remains of a once mighty ship, now a ghostly monument to human ambition and folly. The Titanic disaster has inspired countless books, films, and documentaries. The 1997 film Titanic, directed by James Cameron, brought the tragedy to a new generation, while also reigniting interest in the ship's legacy. It remains one of the most famous and haunting stories in modern history. Though over a century has passed since the Titanic sank, its story continues to haunt us. The lessons learned from the disaster have shaped the modern world of maritime safety, but the Titanic's legacy goes far beyond that. The ship symbolizes human ambition at its peak, and the fragility of that ambition. The Titanic may be gone, but its story will live on forever. As we remember the lives lost, the heroes who perished, and the survivors who lived to tell the tale, we are reminded of the incredible and sometimes tragic capacity of human creation. The unsinkable ship may have been destroyed, but the mystery and the legacy of the Titanic will never be forgotten. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.